Hello, this is Ludwig for Joystiq.com. We're having a look at Dragon Age Inquisition, which is the third Dragon Age game, and it's coming out for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and PC. Now, I'm also joined by Anthony John Agnello, who is completely new to the Dragon Age series. So, what's your fresh perspective on this game? What is it like for you?
Actually getting to sit down with a little playable chunk of Dragon Age Inquisition, I was totally intimidated by it. You know, this is the third game in the series, it's super well established, and I was like,
It's also very tall.
Yeah! I was like, oh my god, I'm not gonna have any idea what's going on. And I really, really, really liked what I saw. These big, wide-open environments, lots going on, you can just sort of look out in the distance. This is like the new thing in games. Everything you see in the distance you can explore. And Dragon Age Inquisition really, really has that feeling. And it's also just immediately physically pleasurable to play. You know, they have mixed the more strategic first game with the more action-based second game, and switching between a very sort of active, action-y battle system with a more strategic, pause turn-based thing. It feels great. It felt awesome. I felt immediately like I knew what was going on.
I think that's sort of a play for people who used to play the game on PC as well, not just console. I mean, that was one of the role-playing games that sort of ran on both systems, on both platforms, and people were wondering if they could have a certain kind of perspective or control style on the PC version represented in the console version. And now there's quite a bit of parity. I think it's really cool that if you are the more tactical player who doesn't want to roleplay as an individual in the party and you can just sort of manage them from the top down, you can do that. Or if you prefer to feel more active and engaged in the fights and fight the dragons on foot, as it were, you can do that.
And it doesn't feel like it's cheapened any aspect of the game to accommodate that. You know, you can end up with a game that feels very bland. But even in just the small sort of 45-minute chunk that I played of the game, it felt like both approaches were suited to the different situations that you met. You know, if you were fighting just dudes that were erupting from some sort of rift, like these giant green skeleton things, it felt good to just run up and attack them and trust the AI that you set up for your characters, who you have a warrior named Iron Bull and a rogue named Sarah, who both feel great, and they were competent on their own, but it felt equally good to, you know, take that overhead perspective and use them both in these different situations.
Now, 45 minutes isn't a lot to gauge the entirety of a Dragon Age game, considering how sprawling they are and how large the stories become and how much history there is to take in and how many side quests there usually are. So let's just focus on what we saw here. I can explain to you what you saw here were the hinterlands. In the hinterlands, it's a foresty area between Ostagar, which is a fortress, and Redcliffe. Now, later on in the demo, you played in Redcliffe Castle. You're making your way across this huge open field. And basically the situation in Dragon Age Inquisition is the mages who, you know, use magic are at war with the Templars, who are sort of the armed forces of a religious organization called the Chantry, and they used to work together to keep mages in check because there are certain kinds of magic that are forbidden, or they're trying to keep rogue elements and uncouth magic users off the streets, as it were. But these two factions are now at war, and to make things even worse, there's a huge portal opening up in the sky that's sending all sorts of nasty things through.
And you, as the Inquisitor, are the sole survivor of the explosion that resulted from this giant hole being ripped into the sky, and now you're traveling the land to try and figure out why it's there and how to close it and all that jazz.
Yeah, I think there's almost an element of Game of Thrones in here, and that there's this tension arising from will these people set aside their differences to focus on a common enemy.
And in the demo that they showed us, the character you play as was a giant female mage who is in the new race that is offered in the game that you can play as. She had big horns, and they were super cool. And I liked playing as the mage. It was fun to play as the mage and go out and shoot giant frozen ice beams at people. and then have your backup characters like Iron Bull run in with a giant hammer and hit them in the face.
It's clearly the best looking Dragon Age game so far, and beyond the environments and the quality of the lighting and the density of the foliage, boring kind of stuff, you actually feel more excited because of the animations and because of the quality of the special effects and how powerful they make a mage appear in this game. I usually play as rogue because I like focusing my attacks on one person and using other characters to set people up so that they can be stabbed in the back. But in this case I had so much fun playing as the mage just because of how fluidly animated it was and how powerful it made you seem and how cool it was. And it's interesting to see that presentation changing the way I think about classes and which my favorite classes are, because now I'm seriously considering to play this game as a mage, which I've never done before.
Yeah, at first I thought, having never played this before, I enjoyed the fact that the mage was letting me, control the crowd with, freezing and fire and all of these elemental things that would either slow or speed things up. And then once I started shifting to the other classes, I was impressed by how they all felt really, really different and really, really useful to me. A lot of times when I play an RPG, I'll fire up something and I'll be like, well, a mage is clearly the way to go. Or, the tank is clearly the way to go. And this felt like everything brought with it a different, unique strategy, and it felt good. Plus, you can jump. And jumping is always fun to have in a game. I like that I could jump over fences around a barn.
It's about time. That's the true evolution. The next generation of role-playing games, they let you jump.
Yeah! Jumping in Dragon Age Inquisition. That's exactly all I'm going to do in the game when it comes out.
The other cool thing about being a mage is that it's also a class that is more central to the storyline, so you feel a little more personally invested in this this tension between the mages and the Templars. And of course anyone likes hurling fireballs at dragons. And you still have the domino effects of strategic spells that can be matched up. So you could turn someone to ice and then hurl a giant boulder at them, and that'll shatter them.
I will say that there's a lot here, too, for people who are coming back to the series. As somebody who had no idea who any of these characters were, it didn't really mean much to me seeing Liliana in a hostage situation near the end of the demo. But I found the story stuff to be very, very impenetrable. So I'm not sure if this is going to be very inviting to new players, but it did take place of hours into the game. Mm-hmm. So go in knowing that there might be some impenetrable lore.
Yeah, that's a very large portion of the game that we have not yet seen. We're wondering what the story is going to be like, how it will connect to the previous games, and of course I'm interested in how the dialogue system will be represented. I think there was a response in the second game where people didn't think it was deep enough, it wasn't rich enough, because they added voice acting. It makes it more cinematic, but your choices are more limited. You don't really have conversations with people so much as you choose the good option, the bad option, and then the sarcastic quip. And hopefully I think there'll be more richness to the conversations in this game. But there's so much more that we haven't seen yet, and I think fans are going to look at this as a return to form after Dragon Age 2, which I personally liked, but I can understand why people thought it was too divergent from the first game, which was a more traditional, big save the world kind of quest. And in this case, we're back to that.
Yeah, I want to play it. This is the first time that I've seen a Dragon Age that I want to play, and I plan on it based on this.
Now, none of this information might be appropriate for Anthony. Blah. I screwed up. Ah!
It's the triple name curse.
Man, it's just all those platforms I had to remember.